It happened just 30 minutes ago. And already the world can't stop talking about it. The grand wedding of Park Eun-bin and Rowoon had just wrapped up, a lavish, dazzling celebration attended by the biggest names in the Korean entertainment industry. The kind of event that would have cameras flashing for hours and headlines flooding the news for days. But as the last guests left and the music faded into the distance, the most unforgettable moment of the day had yet to unfold. It was not on the red carpet, not during the vows, and not even during their breathtaking first dance. It happened in the quiet, in the space that belonged to only two people, away from the noise, the glitter, and the curious eyes. The grand ballroom of the hotel still smelled faintly of roses and champagne. A scattering of petals lingered on the floor, like tiny footprints of the evening's joy. The crystal chandeliers still cast their golden light across the tables, where empty glasses stood as silent witnesses to hours of laughter and toasts. Outside, the city skyline shimmered against the night, oblivious to the fact that, inside one suite high above it all, a moment was about to take place that would eclipse the grandeur of the day. Park Eun-bin was still in her wedding gown, though her veil had been set aside. A few tendrils of hair had fallen loose from her elegant updo. She sat on the edge of a plush sofa, hands resting on her lap, her breath steadying after hours of greeting guests, smiling for photos, and dancing under the lights. The fatigue of the day was settling in, but her heart was still racing, not just from the wedding itself, but from the magnitude of it all. This was her first moment of stillness since she had walked down the aisle. Then Rowoon entered the room, his silhouette framed by the soft glow of the hallway. He was still in his tailored tuxedo, but his bow tie was loosened, and his gaze was fixed on her with that quiet intensity she had always found disarming. In his hands was a small box, wrapped in shimmering silver paper and tied with a satin ribbon the color of deep ocean blue, her favorite shade. The box was modest in size, yet there was something about the way he held it, cradled carefully in both hands, that made her sit up straighter. "What's this?" she asked, a faint smile playing at her lips. "We already had the wedding gifts. You've already given me so much today." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, walked toward her, each step deliberate, the sound of his polished shoes muted against the thick carpet. He stopped just in front of her, looking down at her with a gentle curve in his eyes, the kind that seemed to say more than words ever could. Then he extended the box toward her, and for a moment, the world outside their suite simply ceased to exist. "Open it," he said softly. It was as if you were sharing a secret. Her fingers reached for the ribbon, pulled at it slowly, the silky fabric slipping away from the knot with a whisper. Paper crinkled under her touch, and with each fold she peeled away. Her curiosity deepened. Finally, she lifted the lid and drew in a quiet breath. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its cover a warm shade of chestnut brown, the kind of color that only deepens with age. The edges of the pages were slightly uneven, like they had been touched and handled countless times. It was simple, unadorned. Somehow it radiated a kind of beauty that no ornate gold trimming could match. She glanced up at him, silently asking for an explanation, but he only nodded at the journal, urging her to look inside. She opened to the first page. The handwriting was unmistakably his, slightly slanted, and deliberate. The date at the top read nearly 3 years ago, long before their relationship had been public, back when they were still navigating the delicate balance between co-stars and something more. She began to read. "On the day we first met, I knew my life would never be the same. I didn't say much, but I noticed everything, the way you tilted your head when you laughed, the way you listened when someone spoke, as if every word mattered to you. I told myself it was just admiration, but deep down, I already knew it was something I couldn't walk away from." Her eyes lingered on the words, and her chest tightened. She turned the page, and there was more. The entry was dated, every page a window into his thoughts and feelings throughout their years together. Some pages spoke of the ordinary, the coffee they had after a long shoot, the rainy day they spent indoors. She fell asleep in the car and he didn't wake her until they reached home. Others were heavy with emotion, nights when they had argued, when he was afraid of losing her, the silent reassurances they gave each other when words weren't enough. She turned to a page that made her pause. "There was a day when I was ready to give up on everything, but you smiled at me like I was worth the world. That smile saved me in ways I still can't put into words." Her fingers brushed over the ink as though touching the very memory itself. Each word seemed to breathe with his voice, each sentence carrying the weight of his love for her. She kept flipping, faster now, as if desperate to see where this trail of thoughts would lead. Near the back, she found something that made her gasp, a hand-drawn sketch, in pencil, of herself. It wasn't from the early days of their relationship. It was from today. The detail was astonishing, the delicate folds of her gown, the way her hair framed her face, the veil cascading over her shoulders. Even the look in her eyes, half joy, half disbelief, was captured perfectly. She looked up at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "When did you?" "Did it the day I decided I wanted to marry you," he replied, his tone steady but his eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. "Finished it last night, while you were sleeping." The tears came before she could stop them, blurring the edges of her vision. She closed the journal gently, her hands trembling slightly as she held it against her chest. In that moment, the weight of the day, the meaning of their vows, and the depth of his love all converged into a single, overwhelming truth. This was the most precious gift she had ever received. Her voice broke as she spoke. "Rowoon, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he murmured, brushing away a tear that had traced down her cheek. "Know that every page in here, it's all for you. Always has been. Always will be." Leaned forward, resting her forehead against his, her tears still falling but her lips curved in a trembling smile. For a long moment, they stayed like that, the journal between them, the silence speaking louder than any applause they'd heard earlier that night. Outside, the city lights continued their eternal glow, aware of the quiet promise unfolding in that private room. And then, just when she thought the moment had reached its peak, reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something else. As a plain white envelope, unsealed but neatly folded. He placed it in her hands, and she glanced at him with curiosity before sliding the flap open. Inside were 2 airplane tickets, dated just hours ago, for a destination she had mentioned in passing years earlier, a small coastal town in Italy known for its sunset cliffs and quiet charm. The date of departure was in 3 days. He said, his voice low but sure. "The first stop of our forever journey." She looked back at him, the words sinking into her heart with a weight that made her breath catch. "Our forever journey." Nodded. "Every year, on our anniversary, we'll go somewhere new. And every year, we'll write about it together in that journal. One chapter for every place we see, every memory we make, until there's no more space left in those pages. Then, we'll start another." Her tears returned, hotter and faster this time, streaming freely down her cheeks. She didn't even try to stop them. She set the tickets aside and threw her arms around him, holding him as if the world might disappear if she let go. "This is more precious than anything I've ever received," she whispered into his shoulder. Behind them, a soft knock came at the door. One of the wedding staff, stopping by to deliver a final bouquet from a late arriving guest. Door opened just slightly. The staff member froze. In the sight before her, 2 people, newly married, wrapped in an embrace so full of love it seemed to light the room more brightly than the chandelier. She quietly closed the door again, leaving them to their moment. Minutes passed before they pulled apart, and even then, they didn't move far. Sat side by side on the sofa, the journal open on her lap, the tickets resting on the table, their fingers intertwined. Outside, the night deepened, the city humming softly below. Inside, felt as though time had stopped. Neither of them noticed a faint click of a camera outside the half-drawn curtain. A family member had stepped onto the adjoining balcony to get some air and had glanced through the gap, capturing a blurred but unmistakable shot of Park Eun-bin clutching the journal to her chest, tears glistening on her cheeks, Eun's arm around her shoulders. Within minutes, that image found its way to social media. By the time the clock struck midnight, the hashtag #ForeverWithRobin was trending worldwide. Fans dissected every pixel of the photo, speculating about the gift, the tears, the way Rowoon's gaze seemed fixed entirely on her. Messages poured in, blessings, congratulations, and stories of how the moment had made them believe in love again. Inside the suite, far above the noise of the world, they were unaware of the storm their private moment had caused. They were too busy creating the first lines of the next chapter. As Rowoon took the pen from the nightstand and wrote in the journal's final empty space of the day, "Tonight, she became my wife." spend every day from here making sure she knows why I chose her. And why I'll choose her again tomorrow. Every tomorrow after that. Park Eun-bin read the words silently. Her smile trembling. Her eyes soft with a kind of joy that words could never fully contain. She closed the journal. Set it gently on the table. And leaned into him once more. The lights from the city reflected in the window behind them. Casting their silhouettes into the glass, two figures joined by a promise. And by a love that had just begun its forever.